I'm only going to say this once. Tesla's autopilot system does not allow you to get out of the driver's seat while autopilot is engaged. Unclip the seatbelt, we'll watch what happens. Hey everyone, Rosario here. Headlines all over the internet are filled with reports of a driverless Tesla crashing in Texas and killing the 2 occupants. The articles and the comments within them are filled with a truckload of FUD. Let's take a look at these headlines. This one is from Reuters. 2 dead in Tesla crash in Texas that was believed to be driverless. Here's another from CNBC. No one was driving in Tesla crash that killed 2 men in Spring, Texas. Here's another one that's from Consumer Reports. Tesla's autopilot is easily tricked into working without anyone in the driver's seat. If we dig into these articles, we see that they accurately report that a Tesla crashed and 2 men were killed inside. That's awful and sad. Unfortunately, motor vehicle accidents are an all too common occurrence. But why is this one notable? Oh, of course, it's because it's a Tesla. Immediately after mentioning the crash, the articles start talking about Tesla's full self-driving system and how it claims to let the car drive for you. The articles also mention that there was no one in the driver's seat when the Tesla crashed. Without any evidence, they draw conclusions about Tesla and the crash, insinuating that it was caused by a Tesla in full self-driving mode without a driver behind the wheel. There is literally nothing connecting full self-driving to this crash. This car didn't have full self-driving. It did have autopilot, which is not the same thing. Autopilot was not even engaged when the vehicle crashed. All over the comments sections, people are blaming Elon Musk for telling people that their car drives itself. Why are people not blaming the 2 people who thought it was a good idea to get out of the driver's seat in a 5,000-pound machine while it was driving down a residential road? The media and the public's reactions to this accident must all be caused by ignorance, jealousy, or malice. Perhaps it's a combination of all of these factors. Why? Let's start with the most recent video to try and gain notoriety from this event. The Consumer Reports video released on April 23rd shows 2 people riding in a Tesla on a test track, one in the rear seat and one in the passenger seat with the driver's seat empty. They tricked the car by having a driver first starting in the driver's seat, buckling up the seatbelt behind himself, and hanging a chain with a weight at the end of the steering wheel to simulate the turning force that Tesla requires to show you that you're paying attention, and then starting autopilot. Yes, the car managed to drive itself around their test track, which had lane lines, by the way. Did it crash? No, but it did drive itself while no one was in the driver's seat. That's a huge problem, according to Consumer Reports, because apparently people have literally no responsibility for their actions, and using the car in ways that it was obviously not designed to be used is somehow Tesla's fault, and it's their responsibility to make sure their cars are 100% idiot-proof. Consumer Reports thinks that Tesla should be forced to put in a face tracking system in their cars that forces you to keep your eyes on the road at all times while the car is self-driving. If that sounds kind of like the 7th circle of hell and like something you would never wish on your worst enemy, GM's Super Cruise actually uses that technology right now to force you to keep your eyes ever trained on the road while it drives you down the highway. Imagine the joy of driving a car, except you're not driving it. It's driving itself. But you're not able to look away from the road or around at the scenery for more than 2 seconds without the car going into wild hysterics and demanding your unwavering gaze. Fine, it sounds safe, but here's the thing. Teslas are already incredibly safe. The data shows that Teslas driving with autopilot engaged are 4 to 5 times less likely to get into an accident than an average car. That's odd. So even with all the people out there dangerously able to avert their gaze for 5 seconds, Teslas are still significantly safer than all the other cars on the road. How about that? The reality is that driving is a dangerous activity. In 2019, over 38,800 people lost their lives to car crashes in the US. It's estimated by the NHTSA that between 95 and 96% of all motor vehicle accidents are caused by human error. Essentially, most accidents happen because people screw up. There is literally zero evidence that a Tesla would be made any safer by forcing its driver to stare unrelentingly at the road. There is, however, plenty of evidence that Teslas with autopilot engaged and full self-driving engaged are safer than Teslas without autopilot, and way safer than the average car on the road. They get into fewer accidents, and when you do get into an accident, your probability of dying in a Tesla is way lower than in any other car on the road. Why not just force Tesla to put in eye tracking? Won't it make them even safer? There are other reasons besides making the experience of driving a car even more awful than it already can be. The fact is, if someone wants to get around GM's Super Cruise system, they can do that too. Just look at this photo of an obviously very intelligent man driving down the highway, replicating that scene from the Titanic with no one in the driver's seat. As it turns out, idiot-proofing things does not make them any safer. It just makes the idiots try dumber and dumber things until they end up killing themselves anyway, while at the same time making the average person's life suck just a little bit more because of all the new rules and cumbersome safety systems that companies are forced to make, jacking up the price of their products and making the experience of owning it less enjoyable. I love technology. I love driving. I know it's incredibly important to drive safely, and I take safety as a priority for myself and my family when we're driving. That is why I own a Tesla. They're literally the safest cars on the road by a huge margin. Apparently that isn't good enough because they're also fun to drive, and in this world we can't be allowed to have any fun, can we? Before sharing any more of my feelings on the crash itself, I want to state some facts about Tesla, Autopilot, full self-driving, and what we know about this accident, and the larger picture of crash statistics. First, Autopilot is not the same as FSD. I mentioned this earlier, but I want to explain it for those who do not know or have used the words interchangeably. Full self-driving, or FSD for short, is a $10,000 add-on that you must purchase either when buying a Tesla or via the app as a software update. Autopilot comes standard on all new Tesla vehicles. Here's how Autopilot is defined on Tesla's website. Autopilot enables your car to steer, accelerate, and brake automatically within its lane, under your active supervision, assisting with the most burdensome parts of driving. Here's what Autopilot does. It keeps your car between two lane lines. It cannot be enabled if there are no lane markings on the road, and it is not advertised as any sort of full self-driving system. It accelerates, brakes, and steers for you. It dramatically improves safety and makes driving more enjoyable. For the most part, the car can handle expected situations 95 to 99.x% of the time in my experience. For the record, nowhere on Tesla's website does it say that it is okay or even advisable to unbuckle your seatbelt, put a weight on the steering wheel to trick Autopilot into thinking you are driving, and climb into the back seat while the car steers itself. Elon Musk has never recommended that people try this or anything like this in any of his tweets. When you enable Autopilot, a reminder pops up on screen reminding you to keep your hands on the steering wheel and pay attention to the road at all times. This reminder reappears every 10 to 30 seconds depending on road conditions. FSD, as it currently exists in its public form and on my Tesla, is a little bit more advanced. It can stop at traffic lights and stop signs, change lanes for you, and can merge and exit on the highway. It also adds the ability for your car to parallel park itself and come find you in a parking lot. Still, when you enable FSD in a Tesla, a reminder pops up on screen reminding you to keep your hands on the steering wheel and pay attention to the road at all times. This reminder appears every 10 to 30 seconds depending on road conditions. Exactly the same as with Autopilot. So even with FSD, you can't just get out of the driver's seat without the car going berserk and stopping. Just watch this video I filmed in my Tesla with the FSD option. So I'm in my Tesla Model 3 here, and as you can see, we actually have the full self-driving capability. We have the latest public version, so we have Navigate on Autopilot. This is the likely version that the guys in Texas were driving on. I just want to show you guys what happens if you actually try to get out of the driver's seat in the vehicle. So the car is always checking that you're paying attention, and if I go down here and I unclip the seatbelt, we'll watch what happens. Tons of alerts come on, Autopilot disengages, the car comes to a complete stop, and the hazard lights go on. All right, let's talk about the accident. Here are the facts as I know them. Two guys were driving around in a Tesla. One was apparently bragging about Autopilot earlier in the day to the other. At some point, the Tesla was driving down a community road with no lane lines, and it crashed into a tree and caught fire. The two men died inside the Tesla. According to Elon Musk, the vehicle did not have FSD purchased, and Autopilot was not engaged when the vehicle crashed. The reports are saying that one of the men was found in the passenger seat and the other was found in the rear seat of the vehicle. How did this happen? Of course, internet commentators are quick to point out that the gentleman could have easily fooled Tesla's Autopilot systems into thinking that someone was in the driver's seat, engaged Autopilot, then the poorly designed car took off, autopilot failed, and the car crashed into a tree. Even if this was the case, which it wasn't, it doesn't matter. The two gentlemen were responsible for the accident. They ignored the rules and the law and paid the price for it. Yes, they could have injured someone else. They didn't. If they had, it still doesn't make this Tesla's fault. The vehicle's passengers lived in Texas. They were both licensed by the state of Texas to drive. When you learn how to drive, you have to pass a test and get a license from the government to prove that you know what you are doing and that you understand the rules of the road and the consequences for violating them. I looked up the licensing requirements for Texas just to be sure. All applicants for a driver's license must pass a knowledge exam and a driving exam where their understanding and compliance with the rules is tested. In fact, the manual for the driver's exam has an entire section on distracted driving and the driver's responsibility to pay attention to the road and keep their hands on the steering wheel at all times while driving. Presumably, these guys were aware of this rule and the other rules of the road. Otherwise, they could not have gotten their licenses in the first place. Even if they somehow weren't aware that distracted driving is dangerous, as with all laws, laws related to driving are enforced whether you are ignorant of them or not. It is not Tesla's responsibility to take every possible measure in their power to prevent people from breaking the law. That is so ridiculous and paternalistic that it makes you want to laugh until you realize that it's what these media outlets and internet trolls actually want. Look, I am not telling you to drive unsafely in a Tesla. Follow the rules, but you have to make the choice to follow the rules. That's literally why we have driver licenses. It's to prove that people know the rules and to get them to agree to follow them. If people break the rules, their license gets taken away. It's simple. Stop making life less fun. If you're unable to tell the difference between FSD and Autopilot, that's not Tesla's fault. It's your fault for not even reading their website. Long story short, Teslas get into fewer accidents than any other car. They're safer when you do get into an accident, and they're more fun to drive than 90% of the cars on the road. If you don't like the sound of that, you probably have no soul.
Dario,
What?
that's such a ridiculous thing to say.
What's wrong with that? That's true. Okay, I'll think about editing that out. Here's my recommendation for anyone still watching this video. Before you comment on a video about how mad you are at Elon Musk for his crazy tweets or for making bold claims, think about how much good you have done for the world. Think about how many people have happily promoted your products and how many of your innovations have saved lives or helped people to slow climate change. Think about how many people you have launched into orbit and how many times you have changed the way people send money over the internet. After you think about all those things, realize that you're just some guy, like me, on the internet with an opinion. Instead of trying to get other people in trouble, get out there and change the world with your actions. Make something. Make the world a better place. Start a company. Be an innovator. Learn something. Maybe even read a book. For now, guys, that's all. We'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.